The tech for this podcast was produced by Truth Digital. Truth Digital is the sister company to Cochrane & Co. We work in the same office, we drink the same coffee. We do websites, marketing, paid ads, social media, SEO, and all of the other things that will get you new business quickly and efficiently without the bullshit. Check us out, truthdigital.co.uk, or check us out on socials. All handles are Truth Digital. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you here again very soon. Okay, welcome, David, to the UK Flooring Podcast. My first question, on a personal level, who are you and what's important to you?
Fantastic, yeah. So, like I say, I'm David Edmondson. I've been in the insurance world for 20 years for my sins, but obviously we're going to touch more on that. But yeah, very much a family man, fitness enthusiast, football supporter, trying to get into golf. As I'm about to get married, and I believe you've got to have a golf widow when you get married, so I'm going to go all out for that. But yeah, very, very laid back. You know, I like to deal with people who got the sort of same values as me and are nice to deal with. And you know, because there's a lot of nice people out there who want to be looked after in the right way. So that's how I try and go about things.
And what did your first day insurance look like?
Boring as hell, Tom. Absolutely boring as hell. Yeah, I just remember this is 20 years ago, so I was given this book about that thick, and it was just called Insurance, and it was the most mind-numbing thing I've ever looked at. I started out with car, house, travel insurance, you know, very, very small policies that, you know, you still had to sort of operate on a system and have conversations with. But yeah, it was a difficult entrance into the insurance world, but it was obviously paying a wage as a 20-year-old lad, which at that time I was using just for my weekend jaunts to the football and to go out with mates. But obviously things evolve over time, and you know, you make a career of things, don't you?
I love that. So to frame it for the listeners, Cochrane & Co., a group of companies, is a client of JMG, and Neil, who we've dealt with for years and years, has seen some weird and wonderful claims, problems, challenges. But what, in your eyes, over the 20 years, are the most common mistakes you've seen? Let's stick with flooring businesses, or just, you know, trades businesses, that, you know, they believe they're covered or they're not. Or what's the common mistakes you've seen first, so we can hit them? Because I've definitely made loads.
Yeah. I suppose it's it can be. There's a lot of crossover between contracting trades, and I suppose one of the key elements is assuming cover is correct because this piece of paper says it's written down. When you drill down into things and understand your policy terms, your clauses, your conditions, that's the real sort of nugget of information that you need to be taken away. So more often than not, when we're reviewing documents, if somebody's got, say, the public liability and employees liability in place, just as examples, they then don't understand the clauses and conditions that come with it. A recent example, and again, this is not necessarily the flooring industry, but I had a gas engineer who approached us for a quote. Soldering, blow torches on a daily basis, and on his policy had a big heat exclusion, so he was not covered to use heat. And he said, "Wow, I thought my policy was cheap," and it's like, well, yeah, that's the reason. So that's one thing. Focusing solely on premium over quality of cover, you know, it catches everybody out eventually. I say eventually, you know, you can get lucky. You may never have a claim, but focusing fully on premium over the quality of cover doesn't do any favours in the long run if a claim does happen. Lack of broker relationship as well. You know, your insurance broker should be intrinsically linked to your activities as a business. Conversations should be constant throughout the year, and having one conversation a year with a broker means that you're probably not getting the service you desire, or, you know, there's a complete lack of understanding in your business activities. So communication and a deep-rooted relationship is key. couple of final points. Auto renewing. My God, auto renewing your policy without reviewing the details. You know, when you may have gone through a period of growth, taken on additional employees, vehicles, etc. Auto renewing a policy is madness, absolute madness, because you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're paying for. The premium might look good on paper, but again, when you go into it, it could be completely wrong. So auto renewing is madness. And then one final point as well is contractors understanding what is the difference between different types of subcontractors. So you've got your labour only subcontractors and your bona fide subcontractors, and there is a big difference between the two, and how that operates in the insurance world as well.
How does it differ? Like, what's the...
So if you take a labour only subcontractor, for example, so they're technically classed as an employee because they're working under the direction of the main contractor. They're using the parts and materials of said contractor. They're working to the same health and safety, risk assessment, method statements, etc. of the overall contractor. So even there, they're coming in as a third party. They are then operating under your guidance, your control, and should they injure themselves, it would be your employer's liability policy that would kick in. On the flip side, the bona fide subcontractors, usually a specialist in what they do. So from a flooring perspective, you specialize in the flooring industry, but you may need to bring in electrical contractors, for example, to do some work. So they will work under their own direction and control, use their own methods, method statements, risk assessments, own parts and materials, and very much an independent type of business under their own insurance program as well. So there is a distinct difference between the two, and it really needs to be thought about when you are sort of putting forward your risk information to your insurance broker.
I think that's probably a good point. And if anyone's ever asked me, like, yeah, you can go on all these comparison sites, you can go onto Google, get yourself some insurance, but, well, I'll give my opinion in a minute, but why would you bother using a broker over just using the internet, in your opinion? Because I've got quite a... I think you probably could try and counterintuitively save money on the web internet, but then, you know, from your opinion, why would you, not in a good way, by the way, why would you use a broker?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, you know, I've been in the industry for 20 years, done various exams, working towards a diploma in insurance as well. You know, we'll see where that takes us after. So we're dealing with these things day in, day out. And from an advisory point of view, if you're going straight to an internet site, you're just ticking boxes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, without that professional advice. You know, we're very experienced in what we do, and if you're just working off your own sort of thought process, you will miss things. You know, just the example there of the subcontractors, it's like, who's defining the two for you in a question? You'll probably just get asked the question, do you use labour only subcontractors? Yes, no. Do you use bona fide subcontractors? Yes, no. And then the question is, well, what's the difference? I don't know. So I'll tick yes to one and no to the other without that thought consideration. So everything that we do is very much advised from a professional capacity. And look, you know, there are circumstances where, because of what you do disclose, it could make your insurance premium more expensive because it covers you properly. But would you rather pay for a piece of paper that covers you in the event of a claim, or pay a little bit less for something that doesn't respond when you need the claim, and then you're using your own funds? I know which one I'd prefer to use. So yeah, it's hugely important because, you know, although we don't work in your industry necessarily, because of the types of clients that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, everybody usually has the same common exposures, and we can then evolve that to what sort of industry you're working in.
I think that's what we found. So like on our auto renewal, as in we get a call from our broker, like that's our automatic when it's time for a call, not just automatic. It's like, is it going to go up or is it go down? And I always used to think, like, when we were growing as a business, every single time Neil would come and see us, like, oh, it's going to be more money. And it was more money. But it's like, yeah, but you've got another 6 staff. You've got, like, you've just added 40 grand's worth of tools. I'm like, yeah, we've got 3 more vans. what are you expecting me to say? You know, it's like, but then as you know, then in downsizing, it's like the broker gets to know your business and knows, well, has that changed? Has this changed? Have you missed this up? What about that? And that's where I think the value is, because, you know, as you say, if you've got to, we have done some claims, not, I would say big ones, but some quite important ones, that there was not all of them got paid, you know, and the premiums didn't really go up is the critical thing. You know, it's like, you know, we had insurance for a reason and we've had to use it, thankfully for nothing major, but that's when I got it from it, where it was just a non-negotiable, where it just makes it easier.
Absolutely, and you know, we're always fully transparent with, you know, with the journey that you're on as well, because obviously if the business grows, your insurance premiums are likely to grow with it. However, when you do start to see increases, because we are full market brokers, we will then access other areas, other markets that we can speak to about your risk to see if there is a better deal on the table. But what you will always, you know, find that we do is to make sure that there's nothing on there that's onerous in terms of terms and conditions or get out clauses from the insurance company, because everybody's got an opinion of insurance companies not paying claims, and that can be true, but usually because you've not complied with the terms of the policy, or there's some wording on there that you just weren't aware of. So that's another reason why it's important to use us guys, because we'll point out the stuff that you don't like reading. You know, you've got this clause on here which you need to comply with. If you're not complying with it, then we've got a problem, or we need to go back to the insurance company and tweak it for you. So it's just, really, really important to have that sort of that consistency in speaking with your broker to advise you correctly.
Well, I've got a funny story from yesterday, which I don't know if you're aware of. I found it very funny. So I got a new car recently, and I sent you guys the number plate, the value, where it's stored, bang, it's on cover, done, thanks very much. And then I emailed again saying, right, number plate's gone on private plate, can you update the number plate?
Yeah.
And Neil said something about, something Merck SLC. I'm going to Merck SLC. I'm going to Merck SLC. Well, that's the number plate you give me. So I checked through all my WhatsApps, and the garage I bought the car from gave me the wrong number plate. So I copied and pasted it from WhatsApp onto email and gave them the number plate the garage gave me. But we've had uncover the wrong vehicle. However, if this had been Sarah, you guys send the documentation. Here's your documentation. Here's everything. Did I look over it? No, I didn't. Luckily, it's only been about 6-7 days or something, like just over a week. But we had the wrong car on cover because we copied and pasted. But again, it's like, you know, we could have gone through the forms, but it was picked up by you guys thinking, hang on, that's not that car. So, you know, a genuine error. And yes, I should have checked the paperwork, but it was sent straight to Sarah. And then when we got to put the number plate on, but always check the paperwork before you
check the paperwork. Yeah. Wow,
so,
that could have been interesting.
That would have been even more interesting if I hadn't put the private plate on it. But luckily, it's now the right vehicle. It's now the right plate.
Excellent.
It's got the right cover.
Perfect.
Talking about cover, if someone's got like 10, 20 grand, 30 grand of tools of equipment, what should they be checking on policies? Like, because everyone upgrades tools, all tradesmen have got it. Like, what would you do if you were a tradesman with your tools? How does that work?
Yeah, so tools, obviously when you think of tools, we all hear the stories about thefts, you know, very theft attractive. So as you can imagine, insurers are a little bit cautious about tools or storage, you know, where the vehicles are kept overnight. So if you are using tools day in, day out, is, you know, first of all, make sure that you've got tools cover added onto your policy. Check that it's sufficient limits, you know, because if you've got 20-30 grand worth of tools, sometimes policies limit you to say 10 grand. There will also be limits in terms of the single item limit as well. So if you've got a tool that's worth 3 grand, but the policy has a limit of 1,500, you're going to be inappropriately paid out. That's if, you know, they do cover the claim as well. Because the main thing is when, you know, thefts do happen, it's what were the clauses on the policy, and you'll tend to find that, you know, there must be lock-in devices that were put in place. So if you leave your vehicle unlocked, you're not going to get paid out. Absolutely guarantee that. There's got to be a sign of forcible entry or exit from the vehicle. So, you know, you've got to lock your vehicle. You've got to have tools out of sight, you know, so if it's kept on the front seat of the van, you're going to have insurers sort of wondering why you've done that. So keep them out of sight in the back of a van, you know, making sure alarms are set, if that is a clause of the policy. But one of the main issues that we encounter with tools is when they're kept in a van overnight. So what you tend to find is between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, most policies will state that you need to have that van locked up in a compound or a garage overnight. And in circumstances where you are a contractor, you're out on site, you may be in a hotel car park, you may be, you're on the street because you've holed up in a bed and breakfast, you won't be complying with that condition. And the only way of being able to comply with that condition is for, you know, for us to understand where you're working, what your activities are taking you, and then working on a clause that isn't onerous on you. Because we've seen over the years so many claims decline because tools have been kept in a van overnight between these certain hours, and then insurers just go, well, you've not complied with the condition. And it's scary because it happens a lot. You know, especially, you know, it seems to be the Greater London area seems to suffer the most thefts of tools from vans. So whenever we've got clients working down there, you know, we advise them to, you know, if they can find a compound or a garage or a hotel car park that's very secure, lit up, and has, you know, sort of ways of alerting them if there's any issues, then great. But you can't always prevent it. So making sure that you've got a tools policy that actually responds when you need it to. We're quite fortunate. So some of the policies that we have, we can make them warranty free or clause free because of the relationships we've got with insurers. Sometimes there's a limitation on what the value is per van, but we can take away those overnight warranties, the garaging warranties, and just make it more aligned to keep your tools out of sight, lock your vans up and keep them in a safe place. But yeah, for a contractor, you know, losing 10, 20 grand worth of tools in one fell swoop, it's a lot of money. So the tools cover needs to be spot on.
One of the things we used to, we don't have it anymore, but we also had stock in transit insurance, which I don't think was a lot of money. And not a lot of people have it in the flooring industry, but, you know, if you get into a bump or your van's on fire, or, you know, flooring's not the cheapest material. So for the uninitiated, what's stock in transit cover?
Yeah, so stock in transit is basically you going from position A, say your workshop, to customer location, or picking goods up from a shop back to your location. But whilst that stock's in the vehicle, you know, it could be susceptible to theft, accidental damage, fire. You know, it could even get damaged through water, whatever it could be. But any sort of insured peril that could impact that stock in the vehicle would be covered under a stock in transit policy. Again, limitations like with tools, so making sure the vehicle's locked up and nobody's just had access just to pull things out of the vehicle. But you know, carrying stock can be quite expensive, and if somebody comes along and steals that stock, you want to make sure that you're in a position to replace it. So that's how a stock in transit extension would operate.
Oh, that's cool. Something that we have actually we've been hacked a couple of times. Well, once we've been hacked, but one of our clients also got hacked last week. So why would a flooring shop be worried about, like, you know, a cyber attack or something like that, or what insurance is available for a small person? And I said this one that got you know, significant amount of money taken from the bank last week. I won't go into it, but it wasn't. It was thousands. What protections out there for that?
Yeah, so the cyber risk is probably the biggest threat that we face as business operators, as a country. The UK is the most cyber attacked country in the world. Our little island is the most attacked country in the world, which is crazy. But all businesses rely on computer systems. You know, as we speak, we're talking on a computer system. Every business will have customer information, they'll have invoices, they'll have project information stored on a system, and not having access to that catastrophic. At the same time, somebody extracting money from a business as a cyber criminal, it can run into thousands of pounds, and just to try and make up that lost money, what we've encountered when we see these claims happen is unfortunately a lot of business not able to survive. So all businesses have a cyber exposure, and we work closely with our clients to make sure that they've got what's known as cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is the overarching policy that will protect you against certain cyber threats occurring. And we talk about it until we're blue in the face. The challenge that we have, because it's still classed as a relatively new cover in the grand scheme of things, is we've not had it in the past, so why do we need it now? And that's the sort of the hurdle that we've got to try and get over, because you'd think that all businesses should have it, whereas the reality is probably less than 15% of UK businesses actually have cyber insurance cover in place to back up their own sort of cyber security protections. But really, really important in this day and age.
Do you have to jump through the same hoops? I know, like your tools, you've got to lock up your tools so you get paid out. If you don't, let's say, lock up your computer, so if I leave my laptop open here, unprotected with passwords, if I shut it, obviously I've got a password to get in. Yeah. How does that work? Is it the same? Like, do I get covered if I just leave my laptop open?
Yeah, I mean, as with all insurance policy, there's always certain things that you need to be doing to make sure that you're covered from an insurance perspective. I mean, from a cyber perspective, it's usually quite basic. Multi-factor authentication, making sure your firewalls are up to date. Updating your patches when they're released. If you're working with an IT company that's providing all your security features, just making sure that you're following the guidance. So as long as you're, following these set procedures, and the claim that occurs is unforeseeable, it always has to be unforeseeable and, unpredicted, then yeah, insurers do pay out. Again, that common misconception is, well, I know somebody who didn't get paid out, and it's usually because the computer systems have been left wide open. You can go into a coffee shop now, you can get yourself connected up to Wi-Fi. The security is completely lacking, and you'll have a number of cyber criminals who are operating, trying to get into the ports within the coffee shop, and if they get into your system and you've not had any sort of VPN in place or lack of security, then yeah, you're going to struggle. But in the main, if it's an unforeseen event, you followed the procedures of the insurance policy, the insurance company will support you and pay out.
So normally the insurance company give you like the benchmarks of what you must have. So rather than just buying cyber insurance, they'll say, look, you need to have this, you need to have that, So they give you that specification of what you
yeah.
like a one-man band, if that makes sense. It's like
absolutely. So what we tend to do for our clients is give them a rough idea of costing. So we can put some basic information into a system that gives us sort of 5 or 6 different insurance companies that will put a quote together. Now, when we drill down into the quotes, it will have certain terms and conditions and what the client needs to be doing. So whenever we're quoting, we say, right, if you want this policy, these are the bullet points that you need to comply with. And if you can't comply with it, then we need to do something about it. Or we say to the insurance company, look, we're not quite here with this. Can you take that into account? And they'll probably put a loading onto the premium or an increased excess or whatever it could be. But yeah, we'll certainly put forward a minimum requirement, so minimum standards that you can put in front of clients to make sure that they are doing what they need to do from a cyber perspective.
Cool. So a couple of different types of, there's lots of different businesses we deal with here, but I'm going to go with 2. So £1 million flooring business and just a one-man or girl in a van. So let's just say under the VAT threshold. So one person in a van outfitting flooring, or £1 million flooring business. What's going to be the first 5 things you're going to check for each person, if you can? If we start with £1 million business, if you're going to do an insurance review, what are those 5 things that you're gonna or someone else can think about while they're listening to this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose there's a lot of crossover between the two, and I suppose the starting point is who are you dealing with, who are your customers, what sort of environments are you going into, and what sort of risk protections are you putting in place to prevent claims from happening? Because we don't want claims to happen, and you've got to have a certain control on the business yourself. So from a risk management point of view, we just like to understand that piece. Who are you engaging with from as we talked on earlier, from an employment perspective? So do you have direct employees? Are you relying on a team of subcontractors who are working under your direction, or do you outsource all your work to other subcontractors and have no control over that? One of the key things from a limited company point of view is making sure that the team running the business are fully protected as well from a management perspective. You have to wear many different hats as a business owner, and protecting yourself from the decisions that you make, or usually for the good of the business, can cause complications, and it can lead to people trying to bring some kind of legal suit against you, whether that's regulatory bodies, health and safety, employment disputes. So we'd make sure that from a legal aspect, there's a policy sitting at the top to protect the business owners for those decisions that they make as well. It's known as management liability, or directors and officers liability, but it's certainly a key cover when you're thinking of your own personal assets as well, because it stops you from having to use your own money to defend yourself in what could be a non-starting claim or a claim that's got some legs. But first of all, you need to protect yourself from the top. Understanding any sort of claims history as well. What are the trends? Touch wood, liability claims, if you have one, they can be quite infrequent, shall we say. Some businesses are a little bit more frequent who just don't have any control. But if you're a well-controlled business, liability injury claims tend to be, quite infrequent. So it's what's happened, what can we do to learn from that, and making sure you've got strict controls over those. But the main area that we see claims will always be from vehicles. If you've got a fleet of vehicles, claims are going to happen, no matter how small the fleet is. Claims obviously just happen, unfortunately. So again, it's following what's the patterns, what can we do to help you, what can we do to lower your claims costs, and what sort of internal procedures you've got in place to give ownership to drivers of vehicles as well. Because at the end of the day, you're putting one of your employees in a vehicle that you've provided to them, and sometimes the care can go from that because it's not their vehicle. So it's actually putting systems in place to make sure that they're taking personal ownership and care of that vehicle as well. Tools, we've touched on tools, making sure tools are adequately covered. But yeah, it's a long-winded answer really, but yeah, there's so many different elements, but hopefully that'll give you a little bit of a flavour.
And with having staff, I've been asked this, I'm involved in quite a lot of problem floors, and if you go through a pipe, normally you're covered because you can cover, but what you can't, is it right that I'm going to say this is going to sound hilarious, is can you cover stupidity? What I mean by that is, if someone makes a wrong error and fits the flooring wrong, so let's say you stick the floor down in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by stupidity. So you've got to then rip the floor up and buy another floor. So it could cost you $8,000, $10,000. Can you insure stupidity, or can you only insure accidental damage?
Yeah, that's a great question. So sometimes accidental damage comes from stupidity, though, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a difficult. In the main, if you were to make a mistake with the laying of the flooring and you've spotted the error, usually it's at your own cost.
Yeah.
Now there are some policies that will probably have some kind of extension that you can buy that allows you to, almost cover the rip out and reinstatement of said flooring. The main sort of cover that you can buy though to protect yourself from an accidental damage point of view. So let's just say you're undertaking a contract, you've got 50 grand worth of flooring on site, you've laid half the flooring, and then a flood occurs. You've got to rip up that flooring and reinstate because the job's not complete. You've not signed it off to the end customer, and it's at your own cost. So the key thing that you'll need here is what's known as contract works. contract work insurance covers your ongoing works, all the equipment, all the kit that's involved in a job against any unforeseen circumstances. So like I say, accidental damage, fire, flood. But one of the main things is theft, because if somebody sees a working site and there's some equipment, they will try and get it. We see it a lot with electrical contractors and the wiring. If plumbers are involved in copper pipes, it's tried. Somebody will try and steal it. In your industry, I suppose, if there's some expensive flooring knocking about and somebody wants it, they will do the best to try and steal it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably a little bit unknown for some businesses, is the contract works cover. They kind of just go into it and say, well, if something happens, we'll just have to sort it. You can absolutely protect yourself from an insurance point of view. And if anybody needs any guidance on that, we can help them to get the cover.
And what are the 5 points for just a one man in a van? Because most people, if you're just starting out in a van, you want your insurance to be the absolute least as possible. But if you lose your van or lose all your tools, you'll also be hit the hardest, because you might not be able to afford to replace them. So what's your advice on the 5 things for the one person in a van?
For a new startup, look, the van's got to be properly insured. It's got to be covered for carriage of own goods. If you have that exclusion, then you're not going to be covered properly. From a liability perspective, I mean, there are different types of insurance policies you can get. For a one-man band, we can generally offer tradesman type policies rated off one person in the business. In terms of liability cover, I'd always recommend a minimum of £5 million, if not 10. So making sure you've got an absolute minimum of £5 million in terms of liability cover in place. If you've got £5,000 worth of tools, you can extend that on a standard tradesman policy as well, to make sure that you're covered whilst your tools are in a van unattended. Obviously check the clauses overnight if there's any overnight conditions, but making sure your tools are covered. But building in this contract works extension as well. If you've got a contract value of, say, £20,000 as a one-man band, and that's wiped out in one sort of claim scenario, to find £20,000 to reinstate it is virtually impossible, and it will cost you very, very little to actually have the cover. So it's better to have it. At the end of the day, you're trying to buy peace of mind, because you never want claims to happen, but if they do, it's those key elements that you really need to be thinking about. Because for a one-man band, that business is, it's the life, isn't it? It's got to pay a mortgage, it's got to feed a family. So if the insurance is wrong and then you suffer some kind of incident, you're probably not going to be trading anymore, are you?
No, I love that. Right, I've got some mildly entertaining questions for my own personal gain on the podcast. What's the weirdest thing you've ever insured?
That's a great question. I've probably not got round to insuring the actual requests in general, but I used to, the first place I used to work in was a little sort of high street broker in quite a roughish kind of town, shall we say. No, we won't mention any names. And there used to be some interesting people coming into the shop. One once came round with a massive python round his neck and said, "How much to insure my python?" I kid you not.
Could you get insurance for the python?
You could probably get pet insurance somewhere, but not something we could help with. We had requests for, can you cover my rhinoceros? It's just madness. Yeah, you put me on the spot there. I've probably had more weird and wonderful things over the years, but it's hard to recall.
Without giving details away, can you think of the biggest claim you've paid out on, and just what the subject was you paid out on?
Yeah, fire. Fire. From an insurance perspective, a fire claim is the worst claim for an insurance company. The damage and destruction that a little spark can cause is is unbelievable. So probably going back about 3 years now, I had a claim that eventually totaled £1 million, which is huge, you know. So we had lost buildings, lost vehicles, interruption to business as well, you know, because it prevents the ability to trade. And it's also the mental anguish as well. You know, it's helping a client through that because claims are challenging. You always have on the insurance side of things, the insurers' loss adjusters who are working very much to make sure that costs are kept down and, you know, dissecting cover to make sure that, you know, you've complied with everything. And then on the other side, you know, we've got to, you know, to help a client through a tricky situation, manage that relationship, have those conversations with the loss adjusters, appoint the right people to, you know, provide that wraparound service. And it was challenging, as you can expect. £1 million, insurers aren't just going to go, here's a check for that. They went to town on making sure that we were compliant with all terms and conditions, and reinstatement values were accurate. So, yeah, very testing, trying, but pleased to say still a customer to this day, because we got the right payout eventually. And it's those kind of situations where you do start to see the value of that advice through the insurance broker, because there were certain things over a period of time that we had to increase and tweak to make sure it was properly covered.
I can't remember if exactly, it was a long time ago, but I think we had a break-in, and I don't know if we were due like a renewal meeting or what, but I remember Neil jumping in the car for something. It wasn't a fire, and it wasn't. I'm sure it was a break-in. It was like, you know, the next day Neil's on our doorstep, so going, right, what was taken? Then you're like, you know, you're not going to get that from like your internet insurance reseller. You know, you'll get a point and maybe someone that maybe deals with it, but you're not going to get someone in jumps in the car the next day and just goes, right, let's get this sorted. What have you lost? You know, it's like that's where I saw the value. You know, you've got a human that will take it on seriously, and it's just dealt with. You know, it's not, you're not dealing with every like different people every time. You know, all that type of stuff. It's quite.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place to be. Is being left in the hands of the insurance company. Very dangerous place, because, like I say, even though they are providing you with the cover and hopefully the payout, they're working on their own best interest to make sure that they get the best possible result from it. So, you know, if you are arranging insurance cover through an internet portal, you do not have that backup support. So one of the things that we offer at JMG as well is a full in-house claim support. So not only do we have our execs out on the road meeting, you know, clients like yourself, we have a full in-house support from a claims perspective as well, because claims are messy. And if you're left in the hands of the insurance company, the likelihood is you're not going to get what you want from it. And it will hurt your head. It will hurt your head. It's very intense.
I mean, obviously not any fault to JMG, but what's the biggest claim that you've seen hasn't been paid out for, like, let's say, lack of cover or stupidity? You know, like for someone that thought they had cover and didn't. Have you what mistakes have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, this is going back a few years when I worked in a company based in Stockport, but there was a company that worked on building sites, so they had access to mechanical plant, and 3 of the employees decided, you know, we're going to play a game. So one of the employees climbed into the cab, picked up another one of the guys by the legs by the grabber, and started spinning round and thinking, oh, this is fun. He shattered all his pelvis, broke his legs, you know, couldn't really walk much after it. But the insurers, working with the client, decided that, you know, this was a complete act of stupidity. Our client had demonstrated a really good health and safety culture as well. You know, you can't account for certain things, and you know, the lads involved were reprimanded. They might have even faced some health and safety investigation as well. But our client didn't actually suffer any issue with that or a claim against the policy, because following investigation, it was just a complete lack of just being a normal human being. It was stupidity. There's been other situations, you know, there was a high profile scaffolding company a few years back, and Again, a company that had a really good safety culture, yet some of the employees decided to step outside of that safety culture and start putting platforms upon platforms at height and not following instructions, and they breached health and safety regulations. So the employees themselves were prosecuted, not the employer. So it doesn't always fall back on the employer. Employees have got to follow, the standards that you set. And if they don't, and it can be proven that they are negligent, they can find themselves in the firing line as well.
I love that. Over your 20 years of career in insurance, what's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
Get out. Wow. Yeah. Do you know what? You've got to have a thick skin. And I think the comment of, don't take anything personally, it is true, because it can get challenging at times. People don't want to always listen to your advice or follow, the recommendations that you put in place. And a lot of business owners just see insurance as a necessary evil, and don't really give you the time or that sort of relationship that you want, really. So you've got to be a chameleon to all sort of different types of characters. But yeah, don't take anything personally, because sometimes you've got people on a bad day, they're having things going on in the business that you can't control or they can't control, and then I ring up and say, I need to come and see you and have a chat about your insurance.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always a learning curve. I'd never confess to be an insurance guru who knows absolutely everything about insurance to the nth degree. There's so much I've still got to learn in the industry, and so many different paths I'll probably end up down as well. But I think the key thing is, be consistent, be close to your clients, look after people, and be upfront and transparent, because you've got to have difficult conversations. So yeah, having a thick skin and being resilient through it is key.
Love that. And if anyone's looking to get insurance, even just get a review, what's the number one best way? Who do they get hold of at JMG? What's the best way of reaching out to you guys?
Yeah, speak to a human being. We,
Not AI.
Yeah, not AI. Yeah, yeah. We offer, a service to suit all clients. So, we are out on the road. We go and meet clients that have a certain requirement in terms of size, premium spend, turnover, etc. There could be more sort of one-man band clients that just require a sort of personalized service over the phone or via email. But each and every client is treated the same. We will make sure that you get the best advice, the most appropriate cover at a premium level that obviously suits the business as well. So you can get in touch with us via email, via phone, and somebody will be on hand to respond to that inquiry.
So I'm looking here on my screen, jmginsurance.co.uk. Is that just go on the website, and then is there a form on there just to fill out? And is that
I can send you a specific link because JMG is a large group. We have various different offices. You're speaking specifically to the northwest arm of the company.
Yeah.
So I'm the sales director for the northwest. So I can send you a link that gets you access to the northwest sort of branch of JMG. But when we say northwest, that covers Lancashire, Manchester, Cumbria. Whoever wants to speak to us, we're not sort of defined by an area, even though we've got offices dotted about. From our perspective, if you've got listeners or members that want to speak to us and they are based, down south, that's fine. We'll have a discussion, and if there's somebody better suited to deal with that, we'll pass it on. But if we can deal with it ourselves, we'll absolutely get on the road and speak to them.
Well, I'll make sure that everything's in the show notes, and I'll make sure we've got the right link to get in contact with the right people. Well, thank you, Dave, for sharing your experience on the podcast. Great podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, good with that. Thank you.
The sponsor for this show is us. Is Cockrell & Co. What do Cockrell & Co do? Well, we help flooring shops, retailers, contractors, wholesalers, and anyone connected to the flooring industry spend more time doing productive things, putting systems and processes in place, making more bottom line profit, and running their business much more efficiently than they ever thought was possible. We run training courses, we have a community of nearly 100 people, and this podcast too. So if you want to know more about what we do, the best place to find us is either on socials, Cockrell & Co, or the website, which is cockrellandco.co.uk. We'd love to speak to you about how your business is going, what your plans are, and how you would love to grow and mature that over time. There is no cost to have a conversation with us on Zoom or on the telephone. We now have a fantastic senior leadership team who can help you with 99.9% problems, and if we can't help you, we will find someone that can. So no matter what flooring business you've got, what help you would need, you just need to ask. That is all. So without the corporate waffle, without the bloke in the shiny suit, but someone that wants to make more money and spend time doing things that you love, we would love to hear from you. Again, visit cockrellandco.co.uk and send us a message, or find us on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook and Instagram.